This Week in Startups is brought to you by Moo, an online print and design company that helps you stand out and make a lasting first impression. Stand out like an IPO-bound idea at a hackathon with premium business cards from moo.com. And Squarespace. Start building your website today at squarespace.com. Enter offer code TWIST at checkout and get 10% off. Squarespace. Build it beautiful. Today at Launch Scale 2015, Jason sits down with David Sachs of PayPal, Yammer, and Zenefits, and then Troy Carter of Atom Factory and Nalden Hans of WeTransfer.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to Scale 2015. That's the part where you clap. All right. This is going to be a packed 2 days of learning from the greatest speakers in our industry. And it's a lot of the people who actually do the work. Not just the CEOs, not just the founders. You're going to see a lot of the people who are in the VP and the director positions, the people who actually work really hard to make their companies grow. How many people in the audience would like to see their startup grow in the next year? All right, there you go. Very good. How many people have enough growth or just no more customers? Raise your hand, no more customers. Okay. Exactly. That's why we threw this show. That's why we came up with this concept. This is the second year we're doing it. And we're very pleased with the turnout in terms of the number of founders who are coming, as well as the number of great speakers we have. And our first speaker is just tremendous. He's a triple unicorn creator with PayPal and Yammer, and now Zenefits. He's been right in the middle of creating three of the largest companies of two different eras, really, perhaps three. And he's going to be amazing in terms of what he's going to share with us. And I just want to give a quick thank you to Gigster and IBM, who really helped us put this event on. We couldn't, wow, that's an amazing LED screen. That's the first time noticing it. It's gorgeous. So can we get a big round of applause for our two top sponsors, Gigster and IBM? Thank you for that. Thank you. And so you know, we're going to close the exhibition hall during the talks. The exhibition hall will be opening again from 12 to 2 during lunch. We might be 10 minutes behind today. And then, if you want to go to the theater behind me, that's called the Cow Theater. This is the Herps, that's the Cow. Right after David Sachs' talk, we're going to leave right out through these doors, and you can go into that theater. All the talks are being recorded and will be available after the event. Let me bring out my good friend, David Sachs. Okay, welcome, David. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You've been tremendously busy of late.
Yeah.
Zenefits is raised, I think, $200 million at a $2 billion valuation. What just happened with this round that closed a couple of months ago?
Well, we raised $500 million at 4.5, so.
$500 million at a $4.5 billion valuation for a company that is how many years old?
The company is about 2.5, 3 years old, something like that.
When you started in the internet industry back at PayPal, I guess that was 98, 99, 2000 era?
99, yeah.
99. Did you ever think we would see a company grow that quickly? I mean, PayPal itself, you guys worked on that for close to a decade, and it became $1 billion company, $1.5 billion.
Right.
Now here you are with a company that's 30 months old, and it's worth $4.5 billion.
Well, you know, PayPal, so I guess the answer to your question is back in 99, no. I mean, we didn't really think that it was possible to do it that fast, but PayPal was pretty fast. So PayPal started in 99, and we IPO'd in 2002. And later in 2002, we sold the company to eBay. So PayPal really, that whole era that you associate with the PayPal mafia, all of that occurred in about 3.5 years. It was actually an amazingly short amount of time, especially for sort of how iconic that group of people in that era, went on to be.
Yeah.
And Yammer was another one where we launched the product end of 2008, and it got acquired by Microsoft in 2012. It was another 3.5-year stint, and so Zenefits has been about 2.5, 3 years. So I guess for whatever reason, I've worked on these unicorns that have been very quick unicorns.
And at PayPal, you joined, and Yammer, obviously, you created before
Right.
they sort of tilted into the unicorn territory.
Right.
At Zenefits, you identified it was a unicorn in process.
Yeah, the company's valuation when I joined was about $500 million, and then while I've been here, it's gone up to 4.5.
So that's the David Sachs effect. You join the company, and
No,
it goes 9x in valuation.
I think it was well on its way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a little even undervalued before you joined. People didn't understand exactly how fast it was growing.
It's possible. I don't
How
know.
fast is it growing? Because I hear numbers that seem pretty extraordinary to me. Tens of millions of dollars in revenue and over 1,000 employees. Is this true? Broad strokes?
Yeah, it's in that ballpark.
How many employees now?
I think the number of employees it's well over 1,000. But I don't have the exact number. The revenue. So they sort of spent the first year getting the product off the ground, getting to $1 million of ARR. The second year, or the first full year, it went from about 1 million to 20 million of ARR, and now we're in the year after that, and we'll see how this year ends up. But
Let me pull up a chart here that our friend Chamath Palihapitiya actually shared with people. These are this is obviously the monthly recurring revenue since the launch of a company. In Chamath's style, he's obviously put his top 3 companies there are his, 1, 2, and 3, social 23P companies.
Yeah.
But way up there on the top is Yammer. And
Right.
that growth is that $1 million a month in monthly recurring revenue? Happened in 36 months.
Yeah, so I didn't even realize this at the time, but Yammer was one of the fastest growing SaaS companies of all time. It grew faster, you can see there, than Workday or Box. And so when Chamath published this, it was a little bit of a surprise to me because we knew Yammer was fast growing, but at the time, and this was basically 2008, 2009, 2010, the first 3 years, the whole SaaS space was way less benchmarked than it is today. Like today, VCs, they know exactly how fast you should be growing, and whatever your growth is, they know how that compares to other companies. That wasn't true 5 years ago, and particularly for a company like Yammer, which was consumerizing the enterprise, we knew we were growing fast, but we didn't really know how to benchmark it. So when we added 5 million users, that seemed good for a SaaS company, but then compared to a consumer company, it wasn't very good. And so we actually didn't know until quite recently how it stacked up in this pantheon.
When do you know it's time to start scaling the company versus working on the product? So with PayPal, there must have been a moment in which you said, hey, this product is really tight, it works, let's try to scale it. Or did you just throw the scaling features in and bake them into the product from the beginning? I hear 2 different philosophies about this.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't think there was ever a moment at either PayPal or Yammer where we felt like the product was done or was so great that it was like this binary moment where now we could flip to distribution. I think we were always working on the distribution problem along with the product. And in terms of it was just sort of, we wanted to get both things working at the same time. I'm not sure it was this switch that got flipped.
Hey everybody, let me take a moment here to thank Moo for sponsoring This Week in Startups, and to let you know I use Moo cards all the time. I am in love with Moo.com. It is the best way to break through the business card clutter that you see out there. They have beautifully crafted and unique business cards that you can make, from their square to their triple Vic Lux to a full line of business stationery. And they use something called Printfinity, which allows you to take different images and put them on different cards so you can have a portfolio in your pocket. The way I do this is I take different pictures from our events with me interviewing people, one with Mark Cuban, one with Chamath, one with Chris Sacca, put those all on the back of the cards. When I give out cards, we're like, oh, what's this image? Oh, you interviewed Mark Cuban? When did you do that? You get the idea. It's really beautiful to be able to put a different image on the back of different cards, and they have quality and tailored collections that are just rich, thick, and beautifully crafted. You can really see and feel the difference. And you can choose from one of their exclusive designs, or you can upload your own. New premium features include the spot gloss finish, the raised spot finishes, and my favorite, the foil finishes. So go ahead and visit moo.com for more details. I love moo.com. I've been using them for close to a decade now. It's the only thing you need for your startup or for even a big business. It's super easy to use. It's fun. Go visit moo.com and you'll just love the product. I'm absolutely sure of that. So thanks again, Moo. Let's get back to this great episode. So what was the thing that you got right at each company? When you look at it,
Yeah.
I think I know for the first two what they were, but I want to hear it from you. What
Right.
were the things that were the key moments that led to growth?
Right. So at PayPal, and I'll give you the answer, and then maybe I'll give you like my whole framing on the whole thing.
Sure.
So at PayPal, the critical moment for us was in around December of 1999. A user emailed us, and this was forwarded to the management team by our customer service rep, and that user asked if she could use the PayPal logo on her eBay auctions and was asking for our permission. And that was like amazing to us that like anyone wanted to do that. And so, our immediate answer was, heck yeah, you can definitely use our logo. In fact, why don't we give you a logo to make it really easy for you? And then we went to eBay and searched for PayPal, and we saw that PayPal had organically started being used on thousands of eBay auctions. And so that was the first moment at which we found like a real use case for this product. And so at that point, we dropped everything and focused on taking over the eBay platform. And what that was a platform strategy. This was back in the days before web companies wanted to be platforms. eBay resisted the idea of us taking over. They called us a parasite. But that was it was very much like what I think modern day apps on Facebook would do, or some other. We wanted to take over this platform.
And so, to be clear, the suggestion to go after eBay
Right.
for PayPal came from a customer support rep.
Yes.
That customer support rep was, out of the 100 or 200 people at the company, I'm guessing the 190th most important person in the company objectively by salary and options.
Right.
But the
Well,
best idea came from somebody who was on the front lines.
I mean, I would say the best idea came from the customer, and the customer support rep didn't come to us with the insight, hey, let's pursue eBay. They actually came to us with this question, hey, does this user have permission to use our logo?
Right.
And we're like, wait, that's not the right question to ask. The answer is yes, but like, what can we learn from this? And
Got
so
it.
it was a good thing that we were sort of paying attention to that channel.
Got it. Now with Yammer,
Yeah.
there was a very particular innovation that I believe you came up with that was for the SaaS model that originated with Facebook,
Right.
which was in Facebook's case, it was the .edu strategy.
Right.
In your case, it was the domain name. Explain
Right.
it.
So Facebook originally started with this idea of college networks, and so in order to get into Facebook, you actually had to have an email address provisioned by a college, like Harvard.edu, and then they expanded college by college. Eventually, they abandoned this concept, but we took it and applied it to enterprises. And so what would happen is when you would sign up for Yammer as a user, we would know what company network to put you in based on a confirmed email address. And the advantage of this strategy, unlike, say, a lot of other groups products, is that with a group product, if a dozen different people in the company sign up at different times without knowing about each other, they'll be placed in a dozen different groups. Whereas with Yammer, we'd put you in the same network, and that would allow us to get to critical mass a lot faster. So the reason this ended up being a very compelling growth strategy is it meant that we didn't have to go knocking on the door of the CIO and like sell into the company. Any employee in the company could just sign up and start spreading the product to their coworkers, and we could go viral. And once we had critical mass, then we went to the IT department and said, do you want to have control over this thing?
Right. Which their only choice at that point is to have no control over an employee-led revolution to communicate with each other.
Right. Well,
Were they pissed off, by the way? Did people think it was heavy-handed in a way? Because at the time, I think there were some rumblings that, like, how dare you put us in a group automatically?
Right. So in the early days, some bloggers compared the business model to blackmail.
Right.
But they did have a choice. So the choice is you can get control over it, or you can shut it down, or you can do nothing. And a small number of people will shut it down, but most people, most departments looking at this would see that if this is something that employees really want to do, maybe it has value and we should actually embrace it. And so, you know, the spin that we put on it, which was true, was that why buy software that you don't know if employees are going to use? Why don't you let the employees vet the software, especially in the enterprise where most of the software, you know, becomes shelfware, it's horribly unusable. And, you know, especially this is back in the mid to late 2000s, right, where the software being developed wasn't nearly as usable as it is today. And so why go through this lengthy procurement process to buy software your employees don't like and will never use when you can actually buy something that's already been proven?
Right.
And I think that argument was at a moment where the market was ready to tip towards cloud, SaaS, freemium, that whole idea.
And now you see Slack booming.
Right.
And I think their valuation's probably in the Yammer range now, even higher.
Higher, yeah.
And the product is very similar to Yammer.
Right.
Did you sell Yammer too soon? I mean, do you look back at that and go, oh my God, I sold this company for $1 billion and change to Microsoft. What a mistake.
Well, you know, Slack started in a slightly different era. They started in the era of mobile and multi-platform, and they really nailed that. And so I think, you know, there's a lot of sort of business model similarities to Yammer, but because they nailed the mobile aspect, it actually turbocharged the growth tremendously. So
that's why in that chart, if you pull up the chart one more time, and you look at their growth, it is even steeper than yours, and that is because 2 or 3 billion of these on the planet.
Yeah, so, you know, Slack basically launched right around the time that Yammer got acquired. So I don't know what would have happened. Clearly, we would have had to have adjusted, and you know, it's hard to know.
Okay, let's talk about Zenefits' phenomenal growth. And full disclosure, I'm a tiny investor, and I moved 2 of my companies over because I was paying $125 a month or so per employee to use one of these PEO-type companies. And I moved both companies over. The insurance was, in some cases, lower with Zenefits, in some cases slightly higher, but it all netted out to about a 10% decrease in the insurance cost, but I totally removed the $1,800 a year per employee. So I basically saved $25,000 or $30,000 for each of the 2 companies. How is this possible? How do you guys make money versus these old solutions I was using?
So the way that Zenefits makes money is, so first of all, the product that we offer is an all-in-one HR system. And so we will handle your benefits, you know, medical insurance. We, you know, offer things like health savings accounts, commuter benefits, as well as we integrate with your payroll and push deductions that are associated with all these benefits into your payroll system. We handle your onboarding process, so we have a hiring flow. We can, you know, send offer letters on your behalf and get the employees to sign them. So it's this all-in-one HR system, and we give it to companies for free because we make so much money as the broker of the health insurance benefits.
Got it.
And so we make about $500 per employee per year as the broker of these health benefits. And what it means to be the broker is that we get paid by the insurance company a commission. You know, these health insurance plans cost about $10,000 per employee per year, and the insurance companies give us about a 5% commission. So when you think about how much revenue that is compared to an ordinary SaaS company, I think a typical SaaS company might make something like $50 per employee per year. We make 10 times that. It allows us to give away the HR platform for free. And that's what's so disruptive about the model, is that we're selling this product that really every company needs for free.
And you've been adding a lot of features to it. I get the sense that the reason you joined was because you're so good at SaaS that you could add a bunch of features to it. We've been using it. You have the ability to track people's time off. You have the ability to do their benefits, the payroll. What else are we going to see? Are you going to do like expenses? Are you going to do employee reviews? Or are you going to partner on those? Are you going to work with a 15.5? Are you going to work with a, a Slack? Or are you going to just build Slack into the product? I mean, it would make sense that you could, if you're going to be giving software away for free and you did groups and collaboration, would Zenefits just be a natural person to, since you have every employee in there, to make a collaboration tool inside of it?
Well, I don't know if we'll do collaboration. I think the way that we look at it is that Zenefits is the system of record for employees, and our core asset is the employee record. And so we want to power any application that has a nexus with the employee record. And so some we'll do ourselves, and then others we will do through a platform approach.
Can you say you're definitely not going to do communications ever? Is that definitely not on the roadmap?
It's not on our roadmap today. I mean, that it does feel a little bit out of focus, but I think what we would do is make available the employee records through an API, which will allow collaboration tools to. So, for instance, you'd be able to very quickly provision a communication or collaboration tool.
Got it. So, like Facebook Connect or whatever authorization system, you could let them get into the enterprise instantly. Listen, I could talk to you all day about Squarespace. I love this product. All of our sites are built on Squarespace. Why? Because I can just say, hey, Bryce, hey, Ashley, hey, Jackie, just change this on the Squarespace site. Hey, can we get this up on the Launch Festival site? Hey, can we get this up on the Launch Mobile site? Hey, on the Scale Conference, on this, on that. It instantly gets done. It's easy to use. Squarespace makes beautiful websites so simply. They have all these great design templates. You pick one, and all of a sudden, it looks like you spent $250,000 on your website. Literally, these designers are, a lot of designers are very upset. A lot of web shops are very upset about Squarespace. I've seen this many times where they would normally spend, people would spend $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 on a website, and Squarespace does it for dollars a month, like $10 a month. It's unbelievably affordable, and everything, it starts at $8 a month, by the way. Everything is responsive. So when you pull it up on your iPad or your phone, you have to pinch and zoom to see the website. It all just works. And you're not at, bent over a barrel by all these crazy developer freelancers who then disappear for months. They go, on a hike and they go bike across the United States while your website still isn't responsive or still isn't working. You need to have a professional group behind your website, and that is Squarespace. They also support e-commerce now, and they just keep adding features. Like they have a calendar feature that's really good right now, and there's all these little plugins and little, craftsmanship that make the site look so good. I love the product. You can start your free trial today with no credit card required, and when you decide to sign up for Squarespace, please use the offer code TWIST to get 10% off your first purchase. Squarespace, build it beautiful. Build it beautiful. Please. It's a lot of ugly stuff going on in the world. A lot of ugly websites. Just use Squarespace and make the world beautiful. That's not their tagline, but I love beautiful websites. When I see a beautiful website for a conference, I buy a ticket. When I see a beautiful website for a product, I buy the product. When I see a beautiful website for a service or a startup, I want to meet with them. Go to squarespace.com and have a great, beautiful website. It's trusted by millions of people, including some of the most respected brands of the world. Their technology is state-of-the-art, secure, easy to use, scalable. You don't need to have a developer do it. I could talk for days. Thank you, Squarespace, for being one of my longest-running sponsors for This Week in Startups. I truly appreciate it. It means a lot to me. Okay, let's get back to the program. Okay, so Zen Payroll was a company that you guys were partners with, and we, I know when we signed up for Zenefits, you guys were using Zen Payroll at the time.
Right.
They announced that they changed their name. I don't remember the name. Do you remember what they're called now?
You're gonna have to tell me.
You must remember their name. Anyway, Zen Payroll has a new name.
Right.
I forgot the name of it. It wasn't very memorable. But anyway, they are now going to go into your business.
Right.
But you provide them as a service.
Right.
So you guys are on a collision course.
Right.
Are you guys going to provide payroll services since they're providing benefits now?
Right. Well, so Zenefits' strategy up till now has been to integrate with a bunch of different payroll companies, and we still do that, and we expect to continue doing that, but we're going to look at all the options, and I'm sure there'll be a response at some point.
Ah, I see. So you're considering all options.
Right.
Now, speaking of all options, ADP was a little bit upset, I guess, at you guys providing all this stuff for free. They felt they were being disrupted. They filed a lawsuit. We haven't heard about it in a couple of months. What's the status of that?
So it's working its way through the courts. We think it's baseless. They're basically suing us for defamation because they don't like what we said. But
What did you say?
Well,
And what didn't they like?
what we basically said is that what basically gave rise to this whole series of actions is that ADP blocked our access at this to some of their small business customers. And actually, it's a little bit it's a little different than that. What actually happened is a number of small businesses appointed Zenefits as their third-party payroll administrator. And so ADP prevented that from happening. They basically said you can use any payroll administrator you want except for Zenefits. We said this was anti-competitive, and then they sued us for defamation.
Got it. So that'll take years to work out. In the meantime, you're going to focus on the product.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we've learned about the three models of growth here from the three companies. How does that inform your overall worldview of growth for startups? Because look, there's a packed room here, 1,000 people in the room right now who are trying to grow their startups.
Right.
By a show of hands, they all raise their hands, they want to grow their company.
Right.
How should these companies think about growth since you've done it 3 times?
Right. So the way I look at this problem of distribution, is that it's a very big world out there. It's a big web out there. You have to have a way for either for customers to find you or for you to find customers. That's the problem of distribution. And it's such a serious problem that, wearing my hat as an angel investor for a minute, I will invest in a company that has not figured out its business model yet. I will not invest in a company that doesn't have a distribution model, that hasn't figured out its distribution model, or at least doesn't have a strong theory. You can't just develop a good product. You have to innovate on distribution too. And if there's a common denominator between PayPal, Yammer, and Zenefits, it's that all 3 companies innovated on distribution, not just product. They all had a pretty radically different idea at the time for how they're going to grow. Now, I think what makes it difficult to innovate on distribution is that any good idea gets copied to death, like right away. So you think about the days of email marketing. Well, so many people did it that the channel got burned out by spam. And then you had the days of Facebook platform, where everyone launched an app, and then the apps spammed the newsfeed so much that eventually it got shut down. And so what tends to happen is that you get these periods where there's a new distribution technique, and it works for a while, but then it stops working because it gets copied by everybody. And I call this the law of distribution arbitrage, which is that any unusually successful distribution technique will get copied until it's no longer effective. And so you really have to think about, how are we going to innovate on distribution, not just product?
Got it. So does that mean you shouldn't follow everybody, like the Yammer model of using the domain name?
Right.
Or that you shouldn't solely follow those techniques? i.e. is SEO, SEM, viral marketing, uploading the phone book, using, finding the matching domain names from companies. Are all those, would you, if you had a new startup, would you just put those aside and focus on something innovative, or would you do those and then do something? How would you look at that?
Well, I guess one way I would look at it is there's a lot of different, software's eating the world. There's a lot of different things for software to eat. One way to decide what software you should work on is the things for which you can innovate a distribution model. So there's there's a ton of different problems that software can solve, but there's almost no point solving it if no one's ever going to find out about it. So I think you have to think about, when you're scoping some of the problems that you want to work on as a founder, I think you have to choose things that you can actually get distribution around. And you should think about that from the beginning, and you should bake that into your model. I mean, virality was baked into Yammer from the beginning. It was just part of the core model. It's not something we bolted on later, and I don't think it would have worked if it was sort of added on later. So it's definitely something you have to think about from the beginning.
You're an investor in Uber, and we have Uber speaking at the end of the day tomorrow, I believe.
Right.
Emil's going to be here and talk about their phenomenal growth. What do you think was at the core of their growth? Because they did take their time
Right.
in one market, then the
Right.
second year 2 markets, and then they ramped up. It was
Right.
they didn't exactly go full bore
Right.
in terms of launching in many cities. What do you think the
Right.
secret to Uber's growth was?
Well, I think if you're doing something that's fundamentally local in nature, it makes a lot of sense to nail the model in one location, one city, one geography, and then scale it from there. Because there's no point scaling a model that's just fundamentally broken. So you might as well take your time, dialing it in one location and then scaling it. In terms of what I think made Uber unusually, grow unusually fast, I mean, the guys inside the company are going to have a better perspective than me, but I think one of the things is a phenomenon I call real-world virality, which is when you use Uber, it's frequently you're doing it with other people. And I can't tell you how many times, like especially in the early days of Uber, when other people in San Francisco hadn't heard about it, where I'd be pulling out my phone, calling an Uber, and there'd be people standing there, and they're like, what are you doing? And I would show them right there, I'm calling an Uber, what is that? And you'd end up explaining it to the people you're either riding with or who you're meeting with. And so there's somehow this like nexus to physical world virality. I think the Square cash register is another example of this, where they did this beautiful job of branding the Square register. And so you'd walk into a store that's using Square, and you'd be like, what is that? I want to know what that is. And enough other small business owners would see, as a customer, other stores using that, and I think it would feed on itself.
Awesome. Okay, continued success. Everybody out there, how many people are using Zenefits? I'm just curious if there's any Zenefits users in the room. Wow.
Well, awesome.
That's at least 10% of the audience already. So you've got a pretty good contingent, and if they use the code SAX, they get
We'll have to set up a promo code.
Set a promo code for SAX,
Yeah.
but let's hear it for
Okay.
David Sachs. Great information. Well done.
All right, cool.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, see you.
Okay, now let me bring up my friend Troy Carter. Troy Carter, as a lot of people know, is a legend in the music business and is working on becoming a legend in the angel investing business. Can we bring up Troy Carter from Atom Factory? There he is. Please welcome Troy Carter. Nice to see you.
Hey, Jason.
Welcome. Okay, so you became famous in the music business, finding and discovering artists and managing them.
Yep.
Some of the bigger artists we know, Lady Gaga, of course, was one.
Yep.
You worked with her for a number of years.
Uh-huh.
Who else have you worked with?
Well, I started my career with carrying crates of records for DJ Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince. So pre-Will Smith days.
Really?
Yeah, and then went to work for a startup called Bad Boy Records, which was P. Diddy's company.
Yep.
And then spun off in '99 and started my own management company. And then worked with from Gaga to John Mayer, John Legend, Meghan Trainor, New Kid Charlie Puth. Yeah.
Let's talk about hip hop in the 80s and into the 90s when you were involved in it.
Uh-huh.
This was one of the most entrepreneurial groups, like in business, in American history.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's funny because, I kind of started my career in like the late 80s. I was 16 years old when I started. But when I first came to Silicon Valley, the energy reminded me of hip-hop in the very early days. So you would go up to Def Jam Records, you would go up to Bad Boy Records, you would go up to these labels, and it was just this sort of rebellious culture, a really disruptive culture. And, we couldn't get distribution deals. Nobody thought it was real music. You couldn't get it played on the radio. So, we basically were, had to really hack the business and, and turn it upside down.
And it really was working it from the street level until finally hip-hop was recognized by the music industry. I guess Sony bought Def Jam at some point, was a big turning point.
No, exactly.
What was it in terms of the viral and growth techniques that worked for hip-hop?
You know what?
When you look back at them through our sort of eyes now as entrepreneurs in tech.
No, it's funny. I just saw the movie Straight Outta Compton, right?
Yeah, what did you think of that?
I loved it.
Authentic?
Very authentic.
It felt that way.
Yeah, very authentic. And but I remember the first time I heard NWA in Philadelphia, and it was a cassette tape that like just made its way around, and it was like V88, 88th copy, And I remember listening to it at like 16 years old and hearing these guys curse on records for the very first time. And then you saw these guys with jerry curls. Like we never, being from Philadelphia, we had no idea what it looked, what LA guys look like. And but it was the music just kind of spread through the streets, through the clubs, through passing around mixtapes. So it just was this natural sort of word of mouth that traveled.
It was viral, in fact.
Very, very viral.
And also branded. I mean, back then, was the branding in hip hop very intentional, or was it just something that happened organically?
No, it was very intentional. I think back then, you had to, it was against street rules for you to sound like somebody else, or for you to look like somebody else. The terminology was called biting.
Yeah,
like
you're biting my style.
You're biting my style, right?
Right.
So you couldn't be a biter. So you had to be really original.
And when you look at sort of where it's progressed to now, what do you think of the state of hip hop today?
You
I'm
know
just
what?
curious.
It's kind of gone through these phases. I remember, I sold my management company in 2004. The first management company I started was in 2004. And then 2 years later, I was able to get out of my deal. And I did not want to go back into hip-hop music just because the state of it is the exact time that Nas came out with Hip Hop Is Dead.
Yeah.
And just the music just was bad at that time. And now I'm starting to see a little bit of creativity. You're seeing just like in France, the biggest rappers are French rappers. They're not guys from New York like it would have been, 10 years ago or whatever.
Right.
So and I love Drake. I'm a big fan of Drake. Big fan of Kanye West. So I think it's a new crop that's starting to make waves.
When did you find Lady Gaga? How did you find her? Because that is, if you just think about music for the last 10 years, one of the most unique voices and brands in music. When did you discover her, and what do you think was so special about her run?
You know what? I think since we're at a startup conference, we talk a little bit about failure.
Yeah.
It was I just gotten my company back from after I sold it, and I kind of bet the farm on one act, and that act came in one day. And sat on my couch and basically said, I think I'm going to go in another direction. And literally, no contract or anything. It just wiped me out, like financially, just
Right.
completely wiped. My house was in foreclosure. Cars got repossessed. Eviction notice on my office. And one of my good friends called me up one day, and he said, I saw this girl on MySpace. I'm going to bring her to your office tomorrow. And my buddy Vince is like, really big guy. And I had this glass office where you could see out. And Vince is walking back. And I see this girl with these big black sunglasses, fishnet stockings, no pants on. And she introduced herself as Lady Gaga and started playing me music and kind of played hit after hit after hit. And for a year, we tried to get our music played on radio, and Top 40 Radio just wouldn't touch it. So, we ended up, Facebook was just coming out of .edu. Twitter was on the rise. YouTube was just on the rise. And we started, this sort of artistic democracy to kind of break down, these distribution channels and created this sort of direct-to-fan movement. And, a year later, that's when we saw it really scale.
And it was a lot of very small interactions,
Yeah.
it seems. She was very personal with the fans
Yeah.
over and over and over and over again on social media, on Facebook. Was that the key to it? Just these rapid fire, constantly interacting with the fans?
Our philosophy is we kind of market, we call it the first 50. So who are those first 50 fans? How do we super serve those first 50 fans? And then we kind of feel like those fans will feel like they discovered it, and then you kind of see how it moves. But you got to go really, really hard. It's kind of like start small but think big.
Yeah, and it seems like, and I don't know if this is actually the case, but Taylor Swift seems to have almost, perfectly copied Lady Gaga's approach in her latest album and interacting with people on a very personal level and just taken it supernova, like going to people's houses to play her new record or having them over her house.
Taylor took it to the next level. I swear. Taylor could go work for General Motors and turn that company around right now.
Really?
Oh no, literally the best marketer that I've seen. Like, and it's all her, by the way. Like, incredibly thoughtful about marketing.
The squad concept seems to have legs.
Yes.
Where she just keeps building a bigger and bigger squad of people to
exactly.
go to her events. Now, you decided at some point you were going to focus equally or more on startup companies. When did that happen? When did you get the entrepreneurial and angel investing?
You know what? We met when so after we started experimenting with social media. We ended up building relationships with companies in the Valley, and a bunch of great entrepreneurs and VCs gave us access to companies and deals. And I think we probably invested in close to 80 companies now. And so, when you have 7 artists on your roster and then all of a sudden you got, 80 companies, we just felt like the business model, why don't we create a company that empowers artists and entrepreneurs? So, and by the way, under the same services, under the same umbrella, so the same way, and the services that we provide to artists, let's also give it over here. And we see it as very complementary to what everybody else does.
And so Atom Factory now is just doing its first incubator class. Tell me about that.
Yeah, we launched an accelerator. We're in week 4 of our accelerator. It's something I've been thinking about for a while. And we did one company out of USC last year that, I think four kids from USC was building a digital content business. I liked them a lot, gave them some space. We have a garage, we have a gym in our office that I realized was like the most underutilized space. Like, nobody used the gym, just a bunch of fat guys walking around our office. So we ripped everything out, took the mirrors out, took the equipment out, and stuck them in the gym. And they went from 4 to 35 people in about a little over a year. Did a couple $1 million year one of the business. And what we saw was it was the benefit of our extensive network that they were able to take advantage of. So we decided to bring in 6 companies and see how they benefit from our network.
And what would they experience at Atom Factory that, say, would be different than a Techstars or a Y Combinator?
Yeah, you know what?
How is it different?
It's really brand focused. Is product and brand, and because one of the places I think where we've been able to fill a void is in everything from brand, narrative, communication strategy, customer acquisition, business development. So it's highly focused around that. So it's a little bit of a shorter program than the traditional programs. But we like to think that the companies that'll come out of here will understand brand better than any other accelerator out there.
What does brand mean to you?
And
what are the best practices today for startups?
I think brand needs to have an emotional context to it. Like when you're offended when a brand does something wrong, or you see a spot and it makes you feel good, or the application does something that makes you want to tell your friend about it or whatever, and that can create those magical moments. So how do you interact in a way that makes people smile or makes people's lives better? Coca-Cola is a good example of a brand that, despite what the category is going through right now, when you thought of Coca-Cola 20 years ago, that you thought of Coca-Cola as like the American dream.
Right.
So people in villages in Africa who couldn't find water, took out Coca-Cola, to celebrate or whatever.
Right.
And I think it was that. Remember the commercial, I like to teach your world to sing?
Yep.
It was that emotional connection.
Right. And when you look at these brands now, who do you think gets that right better than anybody in technology? If you looked at all the unicorns or up-and-coming companies?
I think GoPro's done an incredible job, just in terms of building just a great brand, community. Also, they've given the consumers their community's given them permission to be other things, you know, and which is hard because sometimes you can kind of get locked in a vertical.
Yeah.
And but I think GoPro, I think they've done a fantastic job.
Seems pretty amazing. Now, we have one of your companies with us here today, WeTransfer. Let's bring them out.
Yeah, perfect.
You can tell us a little bit about them. So when did you first meet this company, Nalden? You can come on out.
Yeah, so, you know, WeTransfer, you know, since I was at the Scale conference, we were talking about scale, WeTransfer is a company that I've been introduced to that actually decided to come into Smash Labs Accelerator, which they're probably, you guys are the furthest along by far out of the companies. But what I loved about WeTransfer is they reminded me a lot of when we first invested in Spotify and saw Spotify for the first time. Just a company in the Nordic territories, incredibly humble founders, but really built an incredible product that people fell in love with. So in the creative communities has basically, you know, really taken this brand and it's trusted. And it's beautifully designed, very design-centric. But I won't brag. I'll let you brag about yourself a little
So
bit.
tell us, what is WeTransfer for those who haven't heard of it, and how has the incubator been?
First and foremost, WeTransfer is a file sharing service. And
File sharing.
Yeah, and it's very much design driven, and it allows people to share digital content in a very simple way without signing up, without those annoying banner advertisements. So it's very clean. And part of the experience is that we integrated the visual wallpapers in the background. That is partly our business model, but also our space that we give a platform to other creative people using WeTransfer. So we highlight a lot of artists, a lot of musicians, a lot of startups that we think are cool. And that gave us a lot of karma and trust. And that's also how we grew the business or scaled it up. Which is funny because it started also with a lot of DJs sharing mixtapes, right? So it's related to Troy's history. And I was like, wow, if we have all these artists like Just Blaze, Swiss Beats, Busta Rhymes sharing music with their fans through WeTransfer, you know, that's epic. We should do more of these collaborations. So I was like, okay, who's the best person to reach out to? And obviously, after some Googling, you stumble upon Troy. And
So you just emailed him cold, or you knew somebody in between, or?
Yeah, sort of. We got an intro.
We had a Dutch Harvard professor in common.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a typical way startups meet their investors.
Exactly, Dutch Harvard professors.
Dutch Harvard professors.
And then this Smash Labs opportunity came, and for us that's really, really interesting to learn about the US market because we're European, we are modest, right? We don't know how to tell stories. So actually through Smash Labs we learn all these amazing lessons from all these great people and entrepreneurs, how to tell your story better, how to grow your business, and how to do all these crazy partnerships.
And it feels like there's something in the water over in the Nordic countries. I mean, Sweden now has, I think, 7 or 8. I was just there in Stockholm. 7 or 8 of the 7 or 8 unicorns now between Klarna and Spotify and a bunch of other companies. What is it about? And you're from Amsterdam?
Amsterdam, yeah.
What is it about the Nordic countries do you think is working so well? Is it the design sensibility? Is it that there's no sunlight for 6 months?
So totally. I think when growing up in Europe and especially the Netherlands, you have design everywhere around you. The whole country is so tiny, so everything has to be designed. So you definitely grow up with a sense of what is good design. And we are very much design driven and allow people to embrace technology through design, through a great user experience, and it has to be as simple as possible that even your parents can understand it, and that was sort of the benchmark how we started. And next to that, there's less competition, so designers are actually cheap to hire, and same for engineers. You don't have to compete with all the crazy Silicon Valley pay rises.
And what's the deal? How do you work with the companies? You know, you invest in them, you get a percentage of equity.
Exactly.
Is there like a standard deal?
Yeah, we do $50,000, 3%, and it's a 10-week program.
And what do you think the role of celebrity is today with companies? Is WeTransfer going to become a celebrity-driven company?
Yeah, I think celebrity is. I think celebrity is overrated. You know, when I think you got to have a great product, and when you look at some of the best companies out there, be it Facebook, Twitter, Spotify, it wasn't these celebrity-driven networks. It just was about really having a great product. And I think influencers are going to go to where the audience is, right? So, so a lot of startups come to us and, and at launch they want celebrities involved. And I said, it's like an artist showing up to an empty nightclub.
Right.
They want to go wherever the biggest audience is. So once you gain a certain amount of traction, then all of a sudden you see them show up, and then you can kind of get the network effect and a cool factor from there. But I do think that the celebrity part of it is a bit overrated.
But a lot of celebrities now are starting to invest actually their own money
Yeah.
in startups. That seems to be a sea change that's just occurred. Obviously, Ashton Kutcher was the first, our
Yeah.
friend, but it's happening across the board.
Yeah, I think Ashton. Ashton is one of the anomalies. So when I see Ashton, I consider Ashton a real product guy, right?
Right.
He understands product, knows how to work with founders, very thoughtful investor, strategic approach, and he's putting a good team around him. And then on the flip side of it, you see, and then also on another positive is you see Jessica Alba partnering up with with Brian Lee for Honest Company, and it feels authentic, it feels right. She has permission from her audience, being a mother and someone who cares. So all of it's there. And then on the flip side, you see a lot of celebrities that are investing without the knowledge base and also without the right vetting process and network and it's just I don't think I'm ever going to become it. I'm not going to show up and think I'm going to do The Godfather one day.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's people just sort of drive by investing, not
Yeah.
really thinking about is there a match between
Yeah.
the person. It
Yeah.
doesn't seem to accelerate,
Yeah.
any thing. But who do you think, on an influential basis, is really able to push a platform? Because we've talked about this. Instagram is pretty amazing. Vine and Instagram are very much urban products.
Yeah.
And they just don't seem to be very in contact with the actual top users on their system.
Yeah.
The number one user on Vine was Bach,
Yeah.
and I asked him. I met him at an art show, and I said, who do you know at Twitter and who do you know at Vine? He said, I never met anybody there.
No,
I said, you're the number one user on the platform.
I was shocked. I just sat down with a company in LA, Narrative, and they're doing some really incredible stuff on Snapchat. And the first thing I thought, and then it was an announcement today that Snapchat shut down their original content division, Snap Channel, and laid off the entire team. And here you have a company like Narrative that really has done an incredible job of creating original content, educating brands on how to use the platform, and being able to give influencers the access. But you have, for us, talent is our first, and what the platforms don't understand, as these platforms become more and more competitive, it's going to be easier to port your fan base over to another emerging platform. So, so if you're not paying attention and you don't have somebody in there that's going to be talking to Bach and that's going to be making sure that Bach has what he needs, YouTube was smart about it. YouTube built studios. They have talent relations.
Yep.
They have best practices. They've done a really good job around, super serving their community. And I think these other services are going to have to catch up.
Yeah, and Twitter just recently announced 70% revenue share, or that's the rumor, I guess. How do you think that's going to impact things to see the artists getting that much more than, say, on Facebook and YouTube, which give 55%?
No, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's fantastic. Anytime, I represent talent first. So anytime, talent can get paid is a fantastic day.
Okay, on that, everybody go check out WeTransfer. Thanks for coming out. And how do people apply? I'm going to go down and see the the incubator next week, I think, or the week after, and mentor the companies. But how do people apply for the next one? When are you going to do it again?
We're going to see. You know, this was our first one, so we were really excited. But what we want to do after the program, we want to be able to see. We want to work really closely with the companies to help them get to that next stage and make sure that we've done a really good job. And then we're going to open it up again for
Okay, so you got to figure out what worked, what didn't,
Exactly.
and maybe in the spring or something, you think?
Probably in the fall again. So
So
a
you got
year,
plenty of time.
Yep, plenty of time to make sure. We got
let's
it.
hear it for Troy Carter and Nalden Hans.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much. Great job.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. Okay.